Morning, grade nines. Okay, so we're working through this play, Much Ado About Nothing, and you guys are probably sitting there thinking, this is much to do about nothing. Um, there's not a whole lot of action in this play. This is not, it's not a Romeo and Juliet with a bunch of fights and a bunch of deaths. It is more a people study. It's studying some relationships of people in the play, and it's really quite a comedy, right? It's kind of like you can compare this play to us watching TV shows like Friends, right? Friends, there's not a whole lot of action, there's not a whole lot of drama or death or anything. The TV show Friends is about six friends who live in New York together, and there's a bunch of relationships, there's some cheating, there's some funny stuff, and it's a comedy. So Much Ado About Nothing is a little bit like a sitcom, right? So you shouldn't be searching for, if you are sitting there thinking this is just about a bunch of people in like love-hate relationships and they're arguing with each other and things, if that's, and like people overhearing other stuff, if that's what you're thinking it's about, you're right. That's what it's about. The funny thing is, it's not boring because each person ends up taking on their own character, and so Shakespeare does a really good job at developing each character individually. We have this beautiful hero, right, that everyone is just absolutely in love with, and Claudio is just kind of like sort of pathetic guy who really wants to court Hero, like wants to ask her for marriage, but is kind of nervous, and then we also have Don Pedro, who's really Don Pedro is like he's really proper, but like he thinks he's sort of all that. He thinks he's cooler than everybody else, basically, and he is pretty cool. Like Don Pedro well, first of all, his name's Don Pedro, and he's the soldier that comes back from war, and he is cool. Like he's sort of the I don't know, he's like the leader of the cool factor in this play. So that's Don Pedro, and he kind of helps everything sort of take shape with all these relationships. Then we have Benedick and Beatrice. We kind of have two separate stories happening throughout the play of these relationships, two separate relationships. We have Claudio and Hero, which is sort of the main one that goes through, and we're going to talk about that a lot when we get into Act 3. And we have Benedick and Beatrice. And Benedick overhears a few people chatting about the fact that Beatrice is in love with him. And then Beatrice overhears a few people talking about how Benedick is in love with her. And then when they see each other, they have this sort of love-hate thing going on. And that's why I think Much Ado About Nothing is so good for people your age. Because, I don't know about you, but when I was your age, when I was in school, that was so constant. It was constant. I would go to middle school dances, and people would come up to me and ask me if I want to dance with somebody else. I don't know if that's happened for you guys, but like that was a thing when I was your age. Like I'd be at a dance, and someone else would come up and say, hey, like, Julia wants to dance with you or whatever, and it makes me think of this play. It's so funny, because then I would be like, oh, okay, like, maybe I would go get a friend to go tell Julia that I would dance with her. Like, it's that sort of thing that's happening with Benedick and Beatrice, I find. It's like, and then they finally get together, and then they just sort of like pick on each other because they're sort of too nervous about their sort of love for each other, which is, I just find it so funny. So that's Benedick and Beatrice. That's where we left off, right? At the end of Act 2, Benedick goes, "Ha! Against my will I am sent to bid you come in to dinner." There's a double meaning in that. This is when Beatrice is sort of asked to go and invite Benedick to dinner, and she says, "Against my will, I will invite you to dinner." Like I've been put up to this, but really she wants him to come to dinner because she really does actually like him, and he really likes her, but he's like too nervous to tell her. So then he says, I took no more pains for those thanks than you took pains to thank me. That's as much as to say, any pains that I take for you is as easy as thanks. If I do not take pity on her, I am a villain. If I do not love her, I am a Jew. I will go get her picture. That would be Yeah, that would be a couple of references to things. We'd have to kind of look that up. But this is Benedict's last line in Act 2. And then we enter into Act 3 in Leonato's garden, where Hero's there, and Hero ends up overhearing a conversation between, I believe, between Ursula and Beatrice, or maybe that happens maybe. Oh, sorry, no, Beatrice overhears a conversation between Hero and Ursula about how Benedict is in love with Beatrice, right? And then Beatrice comes and talks about it with them. Very similar to the thing that the conversation that Dom Pedro had with a couple of his friends, and Benedict overhearing that conversation. So there's two kind of the similar scenes. They're kind of juxtaposed in that way. Juxtaposed means they're put side by side, sort of. They're very similar scenes, and one it was for Benedict to overhear some people talking about how Beatrice loves him, and the other one, which starts us off in Act 3, is Beatrice overhearing Ursula and Hero talking about Benedict, because you can hear Hero say, "Now, Ursula, when Beatrice doth come, as we do trace this alley up and down, our talk must only be of Benedict. When I do name him, let it be thy part to praise him more than ever man did merit. My talk to thee must be how Benedict is sick in love with Beatrice. Of this matter is little Cupid's crafty arrow made, the only wounds of hearsay." Essentially, Hero's like, let's set these two up. Right? If you've ever set up friends with one another, you might have at some point thought like a friend of yours would be really great to date another friend. That's what Hero and Ursula are doing with Beatrice. They're trying to set Beatrice and Benedict up, which I find funny. So we go on to scene 2. This is where, if there is any action in the play, this is where it happens. Okay, so Claudio's in love with Hero, but then we also have this villain in the play. His name's Don John. He's played by Keanu Reeves in the film, which is hilarious. Isaiah made some wonderful points in that. He found out that or noticed that some of these actors are very we definitely know who they are. And so that's what I find it so funny. This is like all of these actors, it was their start. Dom Pedro, of course, is Denzel Washington. I don't know if you realize that. A very young Denzel Washington. 1993, I think this film was made. So one of the reasons I do this is because of how campy and hilarious that film is, because I love to show that entirely all the way through. So anyway, scene 2. Dom Pedro comes in. I do but stay till your marriage be consummate, and then I go toward Aragon. So Dom Pedro and Claudio is talking to Claudio about I think marriage with Hero, perhaps. But in any case, Dom Pedro and Claudio are chatting. That's how it starts. You'll see in the film. But then Don John comes in, and Don John had this big plan to ruin Claudio and Hero's relationship. Okay? So Don John comes in, and this is when it all is going to go down. What ended up happening is earlier on, you probably saw them chatting in the film section where we watched through Act 2, but Don John sets this up. He sets up this scene where Hero is to be seen in the window making love with another man, and Claudio gets so angry, right? But Don John sets this up so that Hero is not actually Hero. Hero is somebody else. Okay, and so Don John's this villain, but he set it up so that Claudio sees it in the window. It's this big scene in the play. Sees this love happening in the window, and thinks, oh my God, that's Hero. But it's not actually Hero. It just was made to look like Hero. It's Don John's way of, again, like ridiculous. It's Don John's way of tricking Claudio into thinking that his love of his life is cheating on him. Okay, and so this is a pretty big deal in a play set 400 years ago. That's a pretty big deal. Like if there's cheating in a play, like that is pretty racy for a play at that time. which I find fascinating as well. So Don John, some of the really notable lines there. Don John comes and brings Don Pedro and Claudio into this, and comes and says comes and tells Don Pedro and Claudio that Hero's disloyal. This is a big deal. He says, I came hither to tell you, and circumstances shortened, for she has been too long a talking of. This lady is disloyal. And Claudio goes, who? Hero? And Don John, even she, Leonardo's hero, your hero, every man's hero, right? Playing with words. And Claudio goes, disloyal? And Don John goes, the word is too good to paint out her wickedness. I could say she were worse. Think you of a worse title, and I will fit her to it. Wonder not till further warrant. Go but with me tonight. You shall see her chamber window entered, even the night before her wedding day. If you love her then, tomorrow wed her, but it would better fit your honor to change your mind. Okay, so he's telling him the plan, essentially, which is also kind of hilarious, because at this point, Claudio should be able to clue in that it was Don John that set this up. But anyways, Claudio goes and looks in the window, and he says, oh, mischief strangely thwarting. And Don John goes, oh, plague right well be prevented, so we'll say when you have seen the sequel. So this incident sort of happened. I don't know if the incident happens right then and there. Maybe it happens a little bit later. In any case, he ends up seeing Hero in the window with another man, and it's a huge deal. He gets really, really, really upset, and so that's a big part in the story. In the third scene, we enter this guy called Dogberry. I don't actually think he's been in the play yet. Dogberry and Verges. Dogberry is a big deal in the play because he is sort of a watchman type person, and he figures out what happened. He figures out that Don John was to blame for this, and we kind of learn that over the next little while. So we'll watch all of this in the film, which I'm going to show you very, very soon, but I'm just kind of introducing you to some of the important text here from Act 3. Okay, so one more on, I'll pray you watch. So Dogberry says things like this. One word more, honest neighbors, I pray you watch about Signor Leonardo's door, for the wedding being there tomorrow, there is a great coil tonight, like a great turmoil, like there's something happening tonight. Adieu, be vigilant, I beseech you, look out for this. And he's talking to the watchman, right? Kind of tipping them off that obviously Don John has set this up, right? And then they talk about the possible villainy that could be happening. Yeah, that's right. So this incident hasn't happened yet, but Don John kind of tipped off. He said to Claudio that it's going to happen, right? To watch out for Hero because she's not loyal, right? But that does end up happening. That scene with the window, we just haven't seen that yet. It comes up a little bit further on in the play, maybe in Act 4, I forget. But we'll see. We'll see when we watch the film as well as reading the play. So then, from that point on, scene 4 here. Yeah, we're still just kind of talking about the marriage between Hero and Claudio. And that's about it. And then scene 5 happens, and let me just think here. Yeah. Yeah. Scene 5 happens, and at the very end, this is between Dogberry, Verges, and Leonardo, and I think they're still just sort of talking about how there's going to be some villainy here. Mary, sir, I watched tonight accepting your warship's presence. It's taking a couple of errant names as any in Messina. Oh, right, so they take... Dogberry takes a couple of people to a trial because they were part of Don John's plan to kind of mess with this relationship between Claudio and Hero. That's about it. Again, not a whole lot of action, but a lot of relationship stuff. Just remember, Don John's the villain. He's the evil guy who's trying to pit people up against each other. I find it pretty funny. We'll watch the film. I'm going to play that for you right now, all the way through Act 3. This will take us more than halfway through the play. There's only 5 acts, so I think there's 5 acts in most Shakespeare plays, and so you'll get a really good understanding of what's going on after this, after watching through Act 3. That means you've read it, I've explained it, and you've watched it, which is great. That gives us Act 1, 2, 3, a lot of stuff to work with. We know about the characters, we know about the plot, we know the setting, we understand this story kind of through and through now. So after watching through Act 3, you'll have a deep understanding of what's happening here. And you can go back to it if you're kind of still confused. And so next class, we will kind of pause our reading and viewing, and we will work with this text, and we'll write a little bit. I haven't quite decided what that will look like yet, but just keep an eye on the MyKES portal, and you will see what you have to do. All right, that's it. Thanks so much. Enjoy. You have no real assignment today other than to watch through Act 3, which I'm going to take you there right now.
But are you sure that Benedict loves Beatrice so entirely?
So says the prince, and my betrothed lord.
And did they bid you tell her of it, madam?
They did entreat me to acquaint her of it. But I persuaded them, if they loved Benedick, to wish him wrestle with affection and never to let Beatrice know of it.
Why did you so? Doth not the gentleman deserve as full as fortunate a bed as ever Beatrice shall couch upon?
Oh, God of love, I know he doth deserve as much as may be yielded to a man. But nature never framed a woman's heart of prouder stuff than that of Beatrice. Disdain and scorn ride sparkling in her eyes, misprizing what they look on. And her wit values itself so highly that to her all matter else seems weak. She cannot love.
Sure, I think so. Yet tell her of it. Hear what she will say.
No. Rather, I will go to Benedick and counsel him to fight against his passion.
Do not do your cousin such a wrong. She cannot be so much without true judgment, having so swift and excellent a wit as she is prized to have, as to refuse so rare a gentleman as Signor Benedick.
He's the only man of Italy. Always accepted, my dear Claudia.
When are you married, madam?
Why, every day. Tomorrow.
Ah. She's limed, I warrant you. We have caught her, madam.
If it proves so, then loving goes by haps. Some Cupid kills with arrows, some with traps. What fire is in mine ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Contempt, farewell. And maiden pride, adieu. No glory lives behind the back of such. And Benedick, love on. I will requite thee, taming my wild heart to thy loving hand. If thou dost love, my kindness shall incite thee to bind our loves up in a holy band. For others say thou dost deserve, and I believe it better than reportingly.
Are you good men and true?
Yay! Being chosen for the Prince's Watch. This is your charge.
You are to bid any man stand in the Prince's name.
How if he will not stand?
Well, then take no note of him, but let him go.
If he will not stand when he is bidden, he is none of the Prince's subjects.
True. And they are to meddle with none but the Prince's subjects.
Shake hands!
You should also make no noise in the streets.
We will rather sleep than talk.
You speak like an ancient and a most quiet watchman. For I cannot see how sleeping should offend. If you meet a thief, you may suspect him by virtue of your office to be no true man. And for such kind of men, the less you meddle or make with them, why, the more is for your honesty.
You have been always called a merciful man, partner.
Truly, I would not hang a dog by my will. Much more a man who hath any honesty in him.
'Tis very true.
Well, master! Good night. And if there be any matter of weight chances, call up me. Come, neighbor.
We hear our charge. Let us sit here upon the bench till 2, and then all to bed.
One word more, honest neighbors. I pray you watch about Signor Leonato's door. For the wedding being there tomorrow, there's a great coil tonight. Adieu. Be vigilant. I beseech you.
So, Count Claudio shall marry the daughter of Leonato.
Yea, my lord, but I can cross it.
Any bar, any cross, any impediment will be medicinable to me. I am sick in displeasure to him, and whatsoever comes athwart his affection ranges evenly with mine. How canst thou cross this marriage?
Not honestly, my lord, but so covertly that no dishonesty shall appear in me.
Show me briefly how.
I think I told your lordship a year since how much I am in the favour of Margaret, the waiting gentlewoman to Hero.
I remember.
I can, at any unseasonable instant of the night, appoint her to look out at her lady's chamber window.
What life isn't that to be the death of this marriage?
Well, the poison of that lies in you to temper.
Gallants,
I am not as I have been.
So say I. Methinks you are sadder.
I hope he be in love. Old senior, walk aside with me. I have studied 8 or 9 wise words to speak to you, which these hobby horses must not hear.
Oh, my life. To break with him about Beatrice.
My lord and brother, God save you.
Good evening, brother.
If your leisure served, I would speak with you.
In private.
If it please you, yet Count Claudio may hear, for what I would speak of concerns him.
What's the matter?
You may think I love you not. Let that appear hereafter and aim better at me, by that I now will manifest. Means your lordship to be married tomorrow.
You know he does.
I know not that, when he knows what I know. The lady is disloyal. If you love her now, tomorrow wed her, but it would better fit your honor to change your mind.
Conrad! Oh, Conrad! Conrad, I say!
Here, man, I'm at thy elbow.
Mass, and my elbow itched. I thought there would a scab follow.
I will owe thee an answer for that. Now, forward with thy tale.
Sit close, then. Some treason, masters.
I know it.
I have, tonight, wooed Margaret, the lady Hero's gentlewoman, by the name of Hero. I shall first tell thee how the prince, Claudio, and my master, planted by my master, Don John, saw this amiable encounter.
And thought thee Margaret was Hero?
Aye, and away went Claudio, enraged.
We charge you in the prince's name! Stand! Call up the right master constable! We have here recovered the most dangerous piece of lechery that was ever known in the Commonwealth.
Master! Master!
Never speak!
Yes, sir.
What would you with me, honest neighbours?
Marry, sir, our watch tonight, except in your worship's presence, have taken a couple of as arrant knaves as any in Messina.
A good old man, sir. He will be talking, as they say. When the age is in, the wit is out. Well said, ye faith, neighbor Verges. Well, God's a good man, and 2 men ride of a horse, 1 must ride behind. Ah, all men are not alike, alas, good neighbor.
Indeed, neighbour, he comes too short of you.
Well, gifts that God gives.
Neighbours, you are tedious.
Well, it pleases your worship to say so. But we are the poor Duke's officers. But truly, for mine own part, if I were as tedious as a king, I could find in my heart to bestow it all on your worship.
All thy tediousness on me? Ah. I would fain know what you have to say.
Our what, sir, have indeed comprehended 2 auspicious persons, and we would this morning have them examined before your worship.
Take their examination yourself and bring it me. I am now in great haste, as it may appear unto you.
drink some wine ere you go.
We are not to examine these men. Meet me at the jail.